Just before Christmas, Arkansas workers learned their entire world was about to collapse. In a state where poultry brings in billions of dollars and feeds thousands of families, factories suddenly shut their doors, first in Jonesboro, then in Springdale, leaving more than 1,000 people jobless and entire communities on edge. As prices plummeted, households faced ruin, and state leaders struggled to respond. But how did America's top poultry powerhouse fall apart almost overnight? And what really forced Arkansas's governor into crisis mode? Wholesale turkey prices, once a solid anchor for Arkansas farmers, tumbled from $1.55 a pound in 2022 to just 94 cents a pound in 2024. That is a 40% drop in less than 2 years, enough to erase profit for even the most efficient producers. At the same time, Americans started eating less turkey. For 5 years, average consumption hovered near 15.5 pounds per person, but by 2024, it had fallen to just under 14 pounds. With fewer buyers and weaker prices, the market for turkeys shrank fast. Production numbers followed the same downward trajectory. United States turkey output slipped by 6% from 2023 to 2024, as processors struggled to adjust. Giant flocks that once filled barns across Arkansas now sat idle, leaving costly facilities and equipment underused. The financial picture grew even bleaker as sales revenue for major companies collapsed. One leading producer saw third quarter sales in 2024 plunge by 70% compared to the previous year. Behind these numbers, the threat of disease never let up. Highly pathogenic avian influenza kept producers on edge, with new outbreaks forcing culls and tightening margins. Every lost flock meant more uncertainty, and every price drop made survival harder for farms and factories alike. With each passing month, the state's biggest agricultural sector saw its foundation erode, setting the stage for the human toll that would soon follow. Marcy Wittet's phone buzzed just after sunrise on December 4th, 2024. The message was short. Butterball was closing the Jonesboro plant in 2 months. For Marcy, who had worked the line for over a decade, it felt like the ground had dropped away. She had watched her hours shrink from 5 days a week to 4, then to 3. Each cut meant less money for groceries, rent, and her son's asthma medicine. Still, she held on, hoping the worst would not come. But that morning, the hope vanished. Butterball's official notice arrived the same day, stamped with the company's logo and the legal language of the Warren Act. In the break room, the plant manager read a statement from CEO Jay Jandrain, saying this was a difficult decision that affects about 180 team members and their families, and that the company was committed to helping people take the next steps in their careers. The words sounded hollow to Marcy and her coworkers, who had just 60 days to figure out what came next. By February 3rd, 2025, the plant's doors would be locked. The jobs were gone, 180 in all. Butterball promised pay until the last day, plus a severance package and medical coverage through February for those who stayed until the end. But 10 months later, Marcy was still out of work, her savings nearly gone. She had applied everywhere in Jonesboro, at warehouses, at diners, at a hardware store, but nothing matched the steady paycheck she had lost. Some friends tried to transfer to Butterball's other plants, but Ozark and Huntsville were more than 3 hours away. Relocating was not an option for most. The closure was not just a headline or a business decision. It was a personal disaster for every worker who had counted on that job to keep their family afloat. On a quiet county road outside Springdale, a row of empty turkey barns stretches across the horizon. These buildings, once alive with the sound of thousands of birds, now sit silent, a reminder of promises that vanished overnight. For families who spent decades growing turkeys under contract with Cargill, the closure in August 2025 did not just mean lost income. It left them trapped by the very investments that once seemed like a ticket to stability. Take one grower couple who asked not to be named. They borrowed against their land to build 6 modern turkey houses, each one a steel and concrete structure designed to Cargill's exact specifications. With more than $1 million invested, they counted on steady flocks and predictable payments to cover their loans. The contract spelled out every detail. Cargill would supply the birds and feed, the growers would provide the labor, and the company would pick up the finished turkeys. But when the plant shut down, the contract was simply not renewed. The debt, however, remained. Switching to another type of farming is not an option. The barns are too specialized, the equipment too tailored for turkeys to raise chickens, cattle, or row crops without major new investment. Some growers tried to find new buyers, but most integrators already had enough suppliers. Others walked away, leaving behind empty barns and mounting bills. Across northwest Arkansas, more than 100 families now face the risk of foreclosure, their livelihoods stranded by a supply chain that offered no safety net when the market collapsed. In late January 2025, Cargill notified Springdale that its turkey plant would close by August, ending a 60-year run and cutting about 1,100 jobs from the city's workforce. For a community of 75,000, the blow landed hard. Springdale's economy had been shaped by poultry for generations. Nearly every block seemed to know someone who worked at the plant, drove a truck for it, or supplied feed. When the closure hit, the city's unemployment lines grew overnight. Mayor Doug Sprouse faced questions from every direction. Workers, business owners, local reporters, each wanted to know how the city would fill a void that large. Of the 1,100 employees, local officials reported that a few hundred were offered early retirement or transfers to Cargill facilities in other states. That still left hundreds searching for work in a job market suddenly flooded with experienced laborers. The numbers told a stark story. Springdale's total workforce stood at about 43,000, so losing 1,100 jobs meant more than 1 in 40 workers was suddenly displaced. The loss rippled out to families, landlords, and small businesses that depended on plant paychecks. Cargill's departure did not just erase jobs, it cut deep into the city's sense of stability. For many, the future of Springdale felt uncertain for the first time in decades. In December 2024, Arkansas poultry producers faced a new round of biological threats. Highly pathogenic avian influenza struck again, forcing the culling of entire flocks as state and federal officials tracked fresh outbreaks. The virus did not discriminate. Commercial operations and backyard coops alike were hit, leaving producers on edge and insurance agents overwhelmed. Across the country, hundreds of commercial turkey flocks had already been lost to bird flu since 2022, and every new case in Arkansas raised the risk that more plants would close or scale back. Each detection triggered strict quarantines, movement restrictions, and mounting costs for cleaning and disinfection. While the industry struggled with disease, a legal shock landed in quick succession. Cargill agreed to a multi-million-dollar settlement to resolve allegations of price manipulation in the turkey market, sending ripples through corporate offices and boardrooms. The payout was a stark reminder that legal battles could drain company resources just as fast as any outbreak. For Arkansas, this combination of relentless disease pressure and expensive litigation made the business of raising and processing turkeys feel more precarious than ever. Decisions in distant courtrooms and labs now shaped the fate of entire communities. On November 25, 2025, Springdale City Council approved industrial revenue bonds for Tyson Foods, clearing the way for a retrofit of the shuttered Cargill facility. The promise was about 200 jobs, a fraction of what the plant once offered. For the 900 workers not rehired, the economic wound remained open. As the city signed off on new financing, local businesses and families waited for relief that never came. Across the state, more than 100 growers packed an emergency Farm Bureau meeting in Fayetteville, desperate for answers, as Tyson confirmed it would not renew contracts in the Illinois River watershed. The mood was tense. Farm Bureau leaders warned that environmental demands were pushing family farms to the brink. In the background, records from the governor's office showed little more than routine statements and generic workforce programs. Calls for targeted emergency orders or direct aid went unanswered, leaving rural communities to bear the fallout. The gap between corporate rescue and public support grew impossible to ignore. Arkansas's poultry collapse exposes how entire communities remain at the mercy of corporate decisions and shifting markets. As jobs vanish and traditions erode, the state's economic future stands uncertain. The question now is not what was lost, but whether anyone is truly accountable. Share your thoughts below.